All right, let's jump into it. Where we are, Tuesday, 4th of March, 10:27 a.m. So look, I'll start off with gold. Like the whole market's had quite a sort of explosive sort of start to it all, but certainly with gold, it's worth taking note of because, of course, I was looking for this squeeze to move up through this area here, and for a split second, it was looking okay in the sense of sort of like, okay, is respecting the zone, kind of, pretty much this is the level of the zone over here, kind of thing, this little horizontal and this little falling resistance. And as you can see, it's sort of like it did respect it for a second, but then of course we had that big sort of pushback up over there. So yeah, look, it's a bit sort of tough call with gold because I mean, obviously I've been calling this pullback all through this area here, and I still think we will see at some stage this kind of leg. But obviously it's negated this area, or if it did, that was the pullback. But I don't think that's sufficient for the size of the move coming down here. I don't think you can say, oh, that's more just like a little up, down sort of in sense. So we've got a bit of data coming out. 1 second. 10:30 can't be anything sort of too important for us. Quick look over here. We've got unemployment rate for Japan, 2.4%. Yeah, okay, nothing of major necessity there. So where we? So yeah, look back with gold here. So look, it is sort of grinding a little bit higher, and if you sort of like I had sort of dragged out this sort of line through the top here, we had a little bit of, it's not a full confirmed sort of channel, but you can kind of see, sellers more recently moving down here, moving down here. They tried to hold this area here. This is being negated at the moment. So I'll put a little alert. RSI, this is on the 1 hour, so let's get onto something a little bit more usable. 4 hours, a little bit overboard on the 4 hour, a little bit of a hanging man around that area as we saw a second ago, but managed to push through. I think if it sort of just negates this instead of pushes through here, definitely we're still looking, I'm interested around this sort of like, 2010, 2910 area, and then above that, up, whoop, let's keep the same width if possible. There we go. Above that, then possibly up around that sort of 29, 22 area. But that is when I expect we'll sort of probably see some sort of more of a sort of solid effort to get a bit of a sell area through there. But certainly started the week off very strong. I actually bought some around the 30, 40s and that in the end of last week. Took a quick little win and then sort of I actually had a decent little sort of position on yesterday, which I sort of banked out around sort of 89, 90 level, which, as I said, for a second there, like what did we get up to? We got to 92, pulled back to 78, and it was like, bang, okay, here we go. Nailed it, took my profits, started to come down short, and then bang, obviously, sort of it just pushed up there again. So no positions as of this moment, but I think sort of if certainly if we can sort of get above this 96 area, I think that's a decent little move. There's not much sort of really stopping it from going to this sort of 29.06 kind of area. I think that's where we've got the line here, 29.06. And then above that, be looking for 29.22 to sort of see if we get any sort of reaction. I'm not going to be jumping in sort of first person onto the shorts down this area here, but as I said, I mentioned this level sort of coming back on the way down. If we could have got up to this to get this captured this leg, so I thought maybe a quick little rally here. As you can see, the little plan was and then obviously coming down a bit lower. A little bit of a rally up there would have been nice to sell into to get this kind of leg down here. But I think the fact that we've had such a strong reaction from the lows and from this sort of like marked out sort of support area here, that can't be ignored. I think sort of certainly we've got to go, okay, well, what are they doing here? Let's actually drag a fib over this part. You can see the fib coming down here, 61% onto that move there. But if we sort of take this all the way from the highs down to that drop low there, you can see that the 61% coming in at 29.08. So this is an area certainly here, maybe a little bit of an overshoot, but I imagine sellers to have another shot from around this area over here. So if anything, quick little longs up over to this area, and then probably sort of chuck on a bit of a short, see if we can get something to sort of capture a bit of a move coming back down through this way over, through this leg over here. As to sort of how far it comes, well, again, we sort of probably look back and we can say, okay, where has it sort of bounced or where has it respected previously? And, maybe we just look back down towards that 28.80. But certainly if you can get up around here and get onto a short and we can see the market kind of agree with that move, you've got a 30-buck move to the downside as it potentially comes back over here and sort of assesses what's going on with it all. But it's always tough when you're in these kind of scenes. I mean, this is a very V-shape kind of recovery. And as I said, look, if it pushes above this level here, this is a level, as I said, I'm looking for 29.06, but very much you could see this whole move being negated. So your body fill on this takes you up to 29.16. Then we had that little bit of a previous sort of support over this area here. Obviously acted as a little bit of a resistance on the way down, but 29.16 is probably the body fill, and we sort of see. So between 29.06 and 29.16, I imagine this to be a sell area. So let's go here to here. I don't know if have I got set up as cells? Yeah, so it's called cell zone. Cells, bang. Yes. Okay. Bang. So yeah, I reckon sort of somewhere up around this kind of area here. Let's put a little line through here as well. Boom. There to there. I imagine that to be your kind of area where sellers are going to be sort of coming back in, even with a little bit of a push up sort of through the top area here. So just 25 and 21. Provided we do get the push up here. I mean, if this rolls over from here, where we've seen the sellers more recently, tiny little bit of a zone through here previously, you could say that could be something through here. But again, this is why the alert's just above the top here, because you want to see this push through and sort of continue up through here. If this rolls over from here, well, there you go. That's this leg coming down here. But I do think this leg is coming. Which will be a substantial, what I mean, it's not going to be sort of, again, look, I don't trade for the sort of buy the lows and sell the absolute highs and that. But, if you can get a $20, $30 move, 30-buck move, that's plenty, and you can make it, you can make a good return off that there. So we are a little bit overboard on the 4 hour. The 1 hour is not looking super flash hot. We are sort of definitely coming into that little resistance area there. But again, look, it's that time of the morning, not a great deal of volume. Excuse me, not a great deal of volume in the market. If this sort of comes online and then just punches up through here, I imagine that we are coming into sort of some sells in the next couple of candles through there. So it does look a nice little pullback down over here. We'll see how this one plays out. So I'm just having a look. Yeah, body fill on this one here. I think definitely 2016, 29.16. Sorry, I think is your area of the top side where we will see a little bit of reaction. All right. DXY got absolutely smacked yesterday. Really hammered back down. Actually, a lot further than I thought it would have come, actually, to tell you the truth. I go on to lower time frames than that. I had this little area marked out, which I said over the weekend, look, you know what I mean? I think this area is going to get a touch up and that, basically negate this move, which just came off the headlines of that sort of stupid conversation that Zelensky and Trump had in the White House. That gap down and then fill very quickly. And then, of course, as you can see, sort of retest this kind of level over here, which were those previous highs. And this is the thing, is sort of like, we've seen here where we've had sellers before. They were trying to hold it here into Friday's session. Obviously, that Zelensky thing, wow, rocketed it through here, but they step back in over here again. So this becomes the level that you really want to, depending what way you're trading, if you're looking for a top side, this is what you want to sort of get rid of. 107, sort of 35, 36, this kind of area, where the sellers have gone, yeah, look, we're happy to sell it here, happy to sell it. Oh, knee-jerk reaction. That's what I said over the weekend. That's just a knee-jerk reaction for the idea that maybe everything kicked right off and you got a big gap up here. That didn't happen. And obviously, so people go, oh, crap, it didn't happen. Get out. Bang. And as he did, They made the right call and boof, boom, 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 all the way back down. And as you can see, this rally has very much undone very quickly here, back down to the 78%. And even like we're seeing the top up over here, this is where the sellers were. It was allowed to go through. Now that it's come back down underneath, the sellers have moved back in. They said, look, we were selling it here. If it goes through here, well, that's it. I'm going to sell it back down here. So really, this is your kind of zone now that you want to see get recaptured if you are sort of long on US dollar at this sort of point. Because really, that is a substantial sell down. The only thing that holds in its favor a little bit here are a couple of sort of technical points. One, that you've got this wedge that we were working on. This is really a retest of the breakout point of the wedge. And also, it's left a big gap up here. Gaps don't really like to be left alone. And I mean, we did the only example I've seen of one was with DXY was last year, where they left a gap and they closed it this year with that massive rally. But it did close eventually. So you probably would have liked to see this close and then sort of come down to sort of say it's a bit more of a sustained move. So that, as I said, retested the breakout point, left a gap up here, leaves the door open for potential of this to grind a little bit higher. Should you get the right sort of data and the right kind of sort of backing for it all? Because I've been saying, particularly over the weekend, but, through last week as well, that the US seems to be held up, or sorry, DXY seems to be more held up with tariff talk than economic data. And I think that's important to sort of differentiate the reason why it's actually catching a bid. Because, again, if you take away the tariff stuff and you already aren't being held up by economic data, well, then it falls over. If you're being held up because you've got strong economic data, plus you got tariffs, and then the tariffs get abated, well, you've still got the strong economic data to hold you up a little bit more. But it doesn't have that at this point. We did have ISM overnight as well, coming in here, which we haven't got updated numbers for, which came in a little bit lower than expected. We did have sort of the manufacturing prices beat a little bit there, but the manufacturing PMIs, the little red ticket one there, came in a little bit lighter. Not sort of like, oh my God, ring the bells and that. It's it's a shitstorm sort of thing, lack of a better word, but certainly wasn't strong data. Like, it didn't beat expectations, didn't even meet expectations. So look, it's just something to sort of keep in mind with it all. I think downside here, look, if we drag this through here, I think sort of downside, there's not a lot of support coming through here. I'd say, look, because this got smacked so much, retest down here, this is your little breakout zone here. This is what this is what you're gonna want to see break to give you next direction. Which, as I said before, retest of this level gives it an idea to move back up. It's got a gap, gives an idea to potentially move back up to close the gap. But the fact that it's coming down quite strong, back test, and then moving down here would lead you to think, probably do the downside, but it's quite a sharp sort of move here, and so far is unable to put in that new low. So, as I said, normal sort of, well, as I normally say, sort of like, you got your three parts: you sell down, support, on up, you find resistance, previous areas, that's fine. Come down here. This is the third leg we're in at the moment. At the moment, I mean, it's closed, but it's currently in that high-low kind of area, which could lead for a bit of a reversal here. See how it opens up. If it breaks through this low here, then we go down, we do the same little pattern again. We come down, we find support, we move back up, we find resistance, then we get this third leg here, which is going to determine if this move is still continuing. So it's the same sort of price action every time. You just got to see how that third leg plays out, because that's the one that's going to tell us whether we're going to be moving up a bit or whether that's it, and you know what I mean, we're going to be moving sides. What I'd probably sort of suggest, with such a strong start to the week, NFPs also this week as well to keep in mind. I would imagine we have a fairly quiet day while we sort of digest sort of the sort of movements and that from overnight. Yeah, I could come back tomorrow and it's down here or up here, whatever. But I would say that we could be in for a little bit of a quieter Asia session at least, with a bit of a consolidation through this zone over here. So it's yeah, nothing sort of super spectacular, I don't think, sort of planned. But I think definitely sort of, below 106.46, you're looking down to 106.15, which might actually get us down to hitting those price targets eventually. Price target still moving over here. I mean, that was that measured move from that. It just had a bit of a spike up, but again, the same sort of thing where we're coming down. Where's that little kick up? This, yeah, this sort of move here, we're coming down. Massive spike up, kind of stuffs the whole perfect symmetry of the chart. But we know that it can do this kind of stuff. So yeah, I don't think we're about to be breaking major levels as of yet, but certainly at the moment, they're very quick to undo that move, so they're still happy to sort of step in and sort of sell those sort of positions. All right, and move along. So we got Aussie. Aussie moved okay-ish, but found resistance very much on point. So this has all kind of negated this little rounded bottom here, I suppose. Let's see if this wants to move anything more. No, I don't really like that. Get rid of all that. Where's the other Aussie chart we were using for the weekend? So this is the little move that we were looking over the weekend, potentially a bit of a shoot up. Find resistance around this zone over here, pretty much on point, and sell back down. So it's playing ball. At the moment, it's trying to hold these back down. So we had a bit of a sharp sell down here, 5 o'clock on that. So I think this probably would have been around the time we had, again, some more headlines, which makes life very sort of frustrating to sort of trade. When you're not trading off data, you're trading off headlines. Because the headlines can come at any time. The data at least is sort of set, and you can see the market position for it. But in this instance here, you can see it move up and then just bang, crushes right straight back down and that. And I would assume I'd have to sort of match the times up on the charts, but around the time that sort of like Trump sort of responded to Zelensky's comments on the end of the war with Russia is miles off, or a long way off, or something to this kind of effect. Let's have a quick look. So drag this one across. Um, this one here. So, this is the worst statement could be made by Zelensky. America will not put up for longer, blah, 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 blah. Basically, Zelensky saying the end of the war with Russia is very, very far away, with a very concerned look on his face. This guy's an absolute idiot. But again, look, I'm not here to sort of necessarily comment on that sort of stuff, more sort of the charts and how it'll affect the markets. And the point with these sort of things is that, so just managing a position. These things do affect the market, as you can see. They're sort of smacking it about, particularly Aussie, because Aussie is a risk asset, and these things want to see some sort of resolution and moving towards some sort of like peace agreement and these kind of deals. So that's why as much as sort of like you don't want to be involved with these things, you've got to be aware of them because these are the things that move the market, particularly in the current environment. It's not just data. It'd be great if it was just the economic data and we didn't have to deal with the sort of headlines. But that's not what we're trading with now. And if people get stuck in the mud, like a stick in the mud sort of attitude towards, look, you know what, I don't sort of involve myself or look at that, well, that's fine. But you're not going to be able to understand what's going on, and it's going to cost you money anyway. So the point being is that this guy is just completely rabbiting on about sort of, the war's not over. I don't want to. He says like, I want to make a deal. We're going to make a deal with the US. We're going to sort it out. He gets there, he put your reneges on that, and then sort of like, it just goes on and on. Then he goes and speaks to the other parts of Europe. The other parts of Europe say we can't do it without the US. The US say they're going to pull out. It's just a shitstorm at the moment. And as you can see, Aussie is not particularly liking this kind of thing. Aussie's been very weak through the last couple of sessions. As you can see here, absolutely smashed down from that 64 test. So it did try to hold it. We got a little bit of a rally through the day yesterday, but again, look, you can see it just got negated very quickly, and it's back down into that little chop zone down here. You can see that sort of like, this 62 seems to be holding okay, but again, there's only so many times that thing can be tapped on before it breaks through. And if we see that rally in DXY that we were looking at a moment ago, well, DXY got absolutely smashed and closed right near the lows. Aussie, I know it's not part of DXY, but still, as a broad base idea of how the market is treating the US dollar, they're selling the US dollar, they're buying euro. That's why that's sort of moving so much. But they're not buying Aussie. Even while they're selling US dollar, they'd still rather have the US dollar than the Aussie. So it puts it at the lower part of the totem pole. So if they're already selling the US dollar, selling the Aussie and buying the US dollar, what happens when the whole market goes, actually, you know what? This is cheap for US dollar here. Let's buy it more. They apply more pressure. Aussie is going to get crunched. So short setups. I mean, obviously this looks like a nice little bit of a sell down here. But if this goes below sort of 61.90s, yeah, you're probably looking back potentially testing these lows down over here. So I think it's very vulnerable at the moment till it sort of can really do something a little bit better for itself, and we can see some sort of resolution. Because if you look at sort of the other things that sort of hold Aussie up, or technically should be holding Aussie up, like copper, not sort of holding Aussie up, but like what I mean, other things that could um, be sort of proxies or barometers for Aussie strength. So copper, equity markets. Equity markets took a hit. Copper's been holding up very well. Equity markets came back very strong yesterday as well. So these sort of things, Aussie, these are environment Aussie should not be doing as bad as it's doing. So it makes it very vulnerable for the idea that if it's doing bad in a scenario where it should be doing well, what happens when the scenario goes bad? Scenario is sort of good. It should be going up, but it's going down. Now scenario is going down. Well, it's going to be getting twice the hit moving down in this sort of fashion. So certainly not looking great there. I think I haven't seen any sort of anything eventuate with China, other than in them just sort of saying, "Oh, look, we're going to, um, do what needs to be done, basically, should the tariffs come into effect." Okay, that's great. Whatever. So it's no resolution basically with that, and I think that is what's hurting Aussie the most at the moment, because it's very very vulnerable to China. Like if the yuan's weakening, if China's kind of a little bit in danger, we are just like a little schoolgirl that's screaming, and it's certainly taking a bit of a whack at the moment. So. Look, in terms of that's a sort of broader idea of it all. Look, get above sort of 28. You might see a little bit of a bounce, and we can look at sort of say, that 50 level. But in terms of the actual strength, so this red one is the Fibonacci for the sell down. We are seeing, sell down to the lows, only managed to get to that 23% fib line, which is very strong for continuations. Up to 38 is still considered quite strong. 50, well, that's anybody's bet kind of thing. You can go either way with it all. But these two, the 38 and the 23, is very much sellers are not waiting long to apply more pressure. So at the moment, the three legs, we're in this leg down here. We found support. Come up here, we found resistance. This is the third leg we're in at the moment. So if we can rally from around here, we get ourselves at that higher low, bubble bottom, maybe lower low, probably more likely. So we'll see how we go with this. But Aussie certainly needs a little bit of a kick along at the moment. We do have retail sales this morning, is it? Or is that tomorrow? I think it's, no, here we go, retail sales today. So look, expected to see a little bit of a kick up. This could be working in favour for Aussie to be a little bit stronger. We also have the RBA minutes, which I'll see how much of an effect this has because, of course, we get the press conference afterwards. So it kind of negates a little bit of the sort of mystique around, so how did they come to this this sort of decision? You know what I mean? So it's kind of a little bit already covered. So I don't know, imagine this will be have a massive effect on the Aussie. So we'll see how we go with that. But certainly, I think a close underneath 62, you're probably looking for some sort of shorts, as I said, down probably towards that 61.70s as the next level. Have a look at silver. So silver, I'm not part of silver at the moment. It did rally quite strong with gold yesterday. So obviously coming off the lows, as I said, nothing for me at this stage. It has sort of negated a little bit of this sort of sell area. Let's have a look at this. Yeah, so this upper sort of sell line seems to be holding for now. Look, I think above sort of, look, realistically call it 32 because it takes you clear of all these little wicks at the top over here, takes you through this falling resistance here, and then sort of moving back up. We do come into the bottom of a little bit of a chop zone through here. Nothing sort of major, well, say not major. You can see it was very much a major kind of thing. So, you know, it's a lot of sort of head work to do to get above this sort of stuff here. I think sort of realistically, yeah, probably 32.20 to be the sort of the saving line for it. So like this. I think, yeah, 32.20 would be where I'd be a little bit more sort of comfortable with it. It's a little bit overbought. It's hitting into a resistance. I think below sort of 40, 31, 47, 45, that kind of area here. I think that could be okay. Bang, when we retest the lows. So I'll put a little ledge in here. So that's a tiny little zone. Drag one of these over here, and I think this means we sort of continue and we move back down there with it all. I don't think we're out of the woods yet in regards to silver. I mean, look, it had a very strong start to it all. You just got to see if that carries through because, as I said, look, you know, DXY is in that back test area. If that bounces, the pressure's back on here. It did have a very good sort of bounce from the lows. So it came into this little zone, almost to the buy zone. As you can see, body fills on these ones over here were pretty much, that was the call. Sorry, it wasn't the call. That was the line. The call was down here, so no fill. But the body fill, as we can see, was definitely the ticket. That was the area where buyers go, yep, that's good for us, and they've smacked back into it. So look, you know, it's not dead by any means, but it did feel rolloverish over here, and we have had a pullback, quite a sharp pullback. Sharp pullbacks generally have fairly decent little bounces in them. So look, I think certainly you get back above 32.20, and I think we can sort of see a little bit more gains. But till then, I imagine this to be a bit more of a chop zone down here, and I don't imagine it's going to be going through 31.20 straight away. I think there's going to be a little bit of work to be done first. Copper. Copper's holding up very well. As you can see, this is just that little sort of chop zone that I expected us to sort of be coming through. I did have my buys down here at 61%, which I've been waiting. Missed it a number of times. Very close initially before that sort of headline pump. But look, again, this is just your breakout box here. I think that's going to give you your two directions. Yeah, or down here. As buys are now removed. Not that that is the buy zone. Sorry, not that that was the order, but that was where I was looking for my buys in that spot there. So I think that'll give you a direction there. All in all, it's holding up very well. As you can see, we had that big pump. It has come back down a fair bit, close to the 61% of that move. But again, if you actually drag this from the bottom, which is this one just here, see, this one almost came back to the 61 as well. Actually, it's quite interesting. This is the first leg, came back down, almost to the 61, no fill. Second leg, came back down, almost to the 61, no fill. So maybe you could see a third leg push right up here, and maybe I'm not a big Elliott wave person, but I guess the theory is 1, 2, 3, 4. So it means you've got a fifth wave sort of coming up, taking you up towards $5 or so. I could see that being it. Okay, so yeah, I think for the time being, I think it's still a little bit of a sit. I think this is just chop around. All right, and finish off with China, as it is grinding. So it came through its falling resistance last week, up here, stuffing around a little bit. Look, it's respecting these zones a little bit, but again, just in the grind with a slightly positive uptick push. Again, this is what's sort of weighing on Aussie at the moment, this sort of progressive grind up through this level here. We are coming up into the top of what I thought would be that sort of larger zone. So if we see the sellers step in from this area over here, this is the target, this is the breakdown area to sort of come out of this smaller little zone, and then we can sort of start coming back down here. But I think till you get under 728.40, whatever these lows are here, this really remains in a sort of more of a sort of bullish kind of momentum, and the pressure is on to move up through the top side of this sort of little resistance area that we'd have up over here, which we saw act as a bit of a sort of chop area, very tight sort of chop area back at sort of early Feb. I think sort of the China tariff stuff is what's going to be what moves this here. Are we going to sort of see this sort of continue through and sort of push up over here? Or are they going to sort of work out some sort of deal? If they work out some sort of deal, it moves down, Aussie moves back up, and vice versa if they don't make that deal and they go ahead with the tariffs. 10%, I mean, look, it is a large sort of thing. I don't know how this sort of plays into the reciprocal tariffs that he's sort of been touting. I thought that was kind of the overarching thing. You put a tariff, or you tax us, we tax you. That seems like a nice fair deal for everybody. But yeah, we'll sort of see how that one sort of plays out. Okay, in terms of news, we said we've got a little bit of Aussie data and that coming out in half an hour now. Moving on through that, nothing really super of note through Asia, through the rest of Asia or Europe. We got, and that's about it actually, very, very light on the news today and tonight. We got GDP tomorrow for Aussie, slight little tick up there, another tick in the camp of sort of potentially a little bit better for Aussie. You got Caxton, which is the Chinese data. I think that also came out yesterday, part of that. I think there's sort of manufacturing yesterday. Yeah, manufacturing there. As you can see, that was a slight little tick up here. Probably partly the reason that we saw a little bit of a push in Aussie as well yesterday. So that'll be something to keep an eye on for it there. And they got Trump talking middle of the day. This guy ever sleep? I mean, 1 p.m. time here, minus what, 8 hours or so. So it's like 3 a.m. or something over there. So that's yeah, it's pretty crazy. So anyway, Trump speaking, that's something to watch out for. Maybe we can sort of have a look in to see what he's going to be talking about, but obviously I'll cover that tomorrow in the video through there, and then we've got ADP tomorrow night. All right, that's it from me.